Last month we asked you about the dramatic 30% increase in car insurance and how it was putting motorists under severe financial pressure. On top of the latest rise, Insurers Ireland are predicting a further 25% rise in 2016. So people on a premium of €450 can expect their bill to increase to €600. You responded at that time that there were many reasons for the rise in insurance costs, including rulings in relation to the equalisation of charges for male and female drivers, the amalgamation of the insurance industry and increased payouts. The equalisation, I believe, did not necessarily contribute to the increased premium and is all but a red herring. While the other reasons given may have contributed to increased costs, they do not warrant a possible 55% increase in insurance premium over a 2-year basis. The insurance industry seems to be getting out of control and no one, it appears, is representing the consumer. When the Motor Insurance Advisory Board was in place, the insurance industry only increased insurance rates by 40% over an 11-year period. The MIAB had a role on keeping costs down and protecting the consumer. Today we have reported of the ratings agency Standards & Poor's slating the central bank over insurance failures. S&P are asking whether the central bank has the ability to regulate the sector at all. Taoiseach, in December, you did not rule out the reinstatement of the MIAB. And given that the state of the rise of insurance prices in the motor industry, in homes and in flooded areas that already have flood relief schemes in place, are you satisfied that the insurance industry is being regulated properly? And do you now believe that an insurance advisory board should be set up to rein in those costs and to ensure that all consumers and that all homes and business owners get the opportunity at least to have their cars and properties insured at reasonable prices?
Well, as you're probably aware, earlier in the week, the Taoiseach and myself and other ministers, including my colleague Minister Humphreys, met representatives of the insurance industry in Ireland to discuss, in particular, the issues of insurance in relation to people who have been unfortunate enough to be affected by the current episodes of flooding. As part of that discussion, the insurance industry set out the financial issues as they see it for them, and there were some short contributions in relation to the cost of other insurances in Ireland, and in particular, if you like, taking up where we had our previous discussion in which I expressed my concern about the fact that people are being threatened with significant increases in insurance costs. They, in fact, talked about the significant cost of claims in Ireland at the moment, and in fact reference was made, and I think people will know this from the media, to the very high level of whiplash type claims which are now featuring regularly in media reports, and which I understand in relation to motor insurance are a factor in the fact that there are financial issues facing the sector. In fact, barely a week goes by without there being extensive reports in relation to cases up and down the country in respect of this matter. Now, that was a problem that affected Ireland in a particular way more than a decade ago. It certainly seemed to have trailed off, but certainly according to the people who were at the meeting, it's now a very significant problem for the industry again. So to come back to your main point, which is about better regulation of insurance in Ireland, yes, I think that is, I said to you the last time, that's something that I have an open mind on. I think in the case of the flooding, for instance, we've seen an industry which as yet, and this is what the discussions are about, has to address the issue of where very significant state funding is put in to demountable, the newer type of flooding defences, that is not counting for policyholders who seek to have reinsurance. In the same way, as I said to you the last time, I have an open mind in respect of this. You're correct in saying that the central bank is now the overall regulator, particularly from a financial point of view, of the insurance industry. And that's necessary because, remember, in relation to the cases of the insurance companies or company based in Malta, they offered extraordinarily cheap premiums, particularly here in Ireland. Then, they fell into financial difficulties, and then the motorists who had been insured with them, many of whom, if you recall, were young, had to look in an emergency sense for other cover. So I do think it is an issue that we have to come back to with the insurance industry. And now that we've established the dialogue of last Monday, where the industry themselves raised their problems with additional claims. In fact, someone said there's almost a cottage industry in whiplash claims in Ireland at the moment. Now, as I said, we really as a society had dealt with that maybe a decade ago, but it has come back to some extent. Thank you. I anticipate we will be meeting the insurance industry again within the next week, and I will certainly again take up some of the issues that you've raised this morning.
Deputy Barry Cowan.
Thank you, Taoiseach. And I note your comment that you have an open mind on our suggestion, and I would hope and expect that you might exercise some action to elaborate on that open mind at Cabinet, because the bottom line here is that there are many criticisms about the regulation of the insurance industry, and that is something the government has to act on, and has to act pretty swift on. And it's important that all political parties learn from the past in this sector. Insurance costs are out of control, and the government is merely meeting the industry to have frank discussions. There's no point in telling us about the causes. People don't want to hear about the causes. They're well aware of the causes. People want action. Car insurance will have gone up by 55% this year if it's allowed to continue. That is not normal, and it's most definitely not acceptable. And there's no point either on relying on the data that emanates from the insurance industry, because there's no transparency in the insurance industry, and we are expected to take their word for it with this regulation being questioned. Those days of relying on that industry, relying on self-regulation, are gone. The response that you and Minister Noonan are reviewing it won't wash. There's an urgent need, and we've stated this previously, as you've mentioned, and you've had ample time to consider that recommendation. The advisory board will address this and has addressed it in the past. There are many government backbenchers that agree with this proposal. We just want you now to take ownership of this situation and show leadership as your government comes to an end. And please, answer the call that has been made on us as public representatives by those whom we have the privilege to represent, and ensure that no question is ever made or asked about those who have a regulatory authority in this area.
Thank you.
We cannot stand idly by when serious questions are being asked of the regulation in that sector. And it's time now to put that board in place and not rely on the industry to give you the information that means that they can continue at pace, I might add, to increase costs and insurance premium in the manner in which they are. And all the good that you will have claimed to have exercised in your recent budget is wiped out at the stroke of a pen by the likes of this sector.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
Well, Deputy, just let me say this to you. With the example of the PMPA, with the example of Quinn Insurance, and we have the more recent example of the company registered in Malta. In all those cases, because ultimately of a lack of proper financial regulation, what happened was people effectively offered policyholders apparently a better deal, which then boomeranged back when the particular institutions failed key financial tests. So in your appropriate and proper concern, for policyholders facing significant increases. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater and suggest that we go back to a situation where, in the run-up to an election, we suggest that there is a cheap, quick fix solution to this, which will result in everybody's premiums being lowered and where you will have subsequent financial failure. Nobody who is a policy holder and who pays insurance, right, wants to see any insurance company failing, because in this country, when that happens, and under the EU model, the policyholders and people who pay insurance in Ireland generally will end up paying for it. So I think there is merit in what you are saying. And what the government has done is we have begun a dialogue, and a very intense and detailed dialogue, with the insurance industry in relation to these matters. As you said, the Minister for Finance has written to the insurance industry, but the protection of the broader interests of policyholders by the provision of insurance in Ireland is critical. Now, myself, based on the conversations we've had to date, I think there are certain things we can do. For instance, we can look to address this surge in claims and the level of claims in relation to whiplash, because that is driving up prices for every motorist and for every family who has a car.
Thank you, Ms. Donaldson.
And to suggest, though, rather disingenuously and dishonestly, that we should do that overnight simply for the purposes of electioneering. We have to have proper, prudential, financial regulation of the sector, because we have well, remember, in the case of Quinn and in the case of the PMPA, the general body of Irish insurance payers have ended up paying very, very long-term levies in relation to insurance policies. And I'm sure Fianna Fáil doesn't want to see that.
Thank you very much.